Welcome to District Command Central, your go-to source for the latest news and updates on the Washington Commanders. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a play. Dan Quinn stood at the podium after yet another gut-wrenching loss, his expression a mix of frustration and determination. The Washington Commanders had just fallen to the Chicago Bears, dropping to a 3-3 record that somehow feels a lot worse than it looks on paper. Because here's the truth. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was a game the Commanders should have owned from start to finish, a game where the defense was expected to dominate, where Jaden Daniels was supposed to continue proving he's the real deal, and where the team could have built momentum for what's coming next. Instead, it turned into another self-inflicted disaster, another night where Washington dug its own grave and then tried to climb out just a little too late. Dan Quinn wasn't happy, and honestly, he shouldn't be. When Quinn took over the Commanders, one of his biggest messages was about identity, about building a culture of discipline, energy, and accountability. But right now, that message seems to be getting lost somewhere between kickoff and halftime. We've become way too accustomed to digging ourselves in a hole too early, Quinn said after the game, his tone sharp but controlled. Turnovers, one late. All three phases dug the hole, and all three phases helped get out. But we didn't create enough takeaways to finish -3. You really don't deserve to win many games when you're in that space. That's a coach who's tired of excuses. And who can blame him? The Commanders have spent too many games this season chasing instead of leading, reacting instead of dictating, and hoping instead of executing. If you've been watching this team closely, you know exactly what Quinn's talking about. The Commanders have been their own worst enemy all season. The turnovers have been brutal, drive killers, momentum killers, and confidence killers. And the slow starts? They've become a weekly nightmare. Against the Bears, Washington was flat from the very first snap, again playing from behind before the first quarter was even over. And it's not just about X's and O's. It's about energy. The Commanders looked like they were waiting for something good to happen instead of going out there and making it happen. That's not the kind of mindset that wins games in the NFL. Last week's comeback went over the Chargers gave fans a little hope. Maybe this team had turned a corner. Maybe they'd learned how to close, how to fight back, how to build off adversity instead of being crushed by it. But Monday night erased all of that goodwill. It was back to square one, back to the same mistakes, the same lack of focus, the same story we've seen too many times before. Quinn's post-game message wasn't just about the Bears. It was about a pattern that's been forming all season, one that could derail everything if it doesn't stop now. And that's the scary part. Because as Quinn himself pointed out, the schedule from here doesn't do them any favors. The next 4 games? Brutal. The Commanders are hitting the road to face the Dallas Cowboys and the Kansas City Chiefs, 2 teams that thrive on punishing mistakes. Then they come home to face the Seattle Seahawks and the Detroit Lions, both legitimate playoff contenders. That's a 4-week gauntlet where even the smallest slip-up could snowball into disaster. Washington can't afford to stumble out of the gate anymore. They can't afford the missed tackles, the late turnovers, the mental errors that keep putting them in impossible situations. If they want to be taken seriously, if they want to prove that this season isn't already slipping away, it has to start with urgency, and it has to start now. Quinn's words after the game weren't just coach speak. They were a challenge to his players, his staff, and maybe even to himself. He knows this team has talent. He knows they can hang with anyone when they play clean, smart football. But he also knows talent doesn't mean much when you can't execute the basics. We had chances for interceptions, had chances to get some, but did not create any, he said. Honestly, just didn't perform well enough. That kind of honesty cuts deep, especially in a locker room full of guys who believe they should be better. But sometimes, the truth hurts because it needs to. And let's talk about Jaden Daniels for a second. The rookie quarterback has been electric at times. His mobility, his poise under pressure, his flashes of brilliance have shown why Washington was so excited to draft him. But with that excitement comes growing pains, and right now those growing pains are costing games. Daniels' late-game fumble against Chicago was the kind of moment that defines young quarterbacks, not just because of the mistake itself, but because of how they respond afterward. Daniels took the blame, faced the media, and owned it. That's a good sign. But ownership alone won't fix the problem. He's got to learn from it fast, especially with Micah Parsons and Chris Jones waiting for him over the next 2 weeks. And it's not just on Daniels. This whole team has to take a hard look in the mirror. The defense that was supposed to be the backbone of this team looked disorganized and reactive against the Bears. Missed tackles, blown coverages, and a lack of takeaways turned what should have been a comfortable night into a frustrating collapse. The secondary, in particular, continues to give up too many easy completions, allowing opposing quarterbacks to find rhythm early, and once that happens, it's hard to recover. The defensive line, once the pride of Washington football, has been inconsistent, flashing brilliance on one play and disappearing the next. The offense, meanwhile, feels like it's constantly playing uphill. When the Commanders get into rhythm, they can move the ball with anyone. But when they start slow, and that's becoming a habit, they force Daniels to press, the play calling becomes predictable, and the mistakes pile up. It's a dangerous cycle, one that Quinn and offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury need to break immediately. Because you can't beat the Cowboys, Chiefs, Seahawks, or Lions by spotting them early leads. You just can't. Now here's where things get real. Dan Quinn is known for his defensive mind, for his ability to motivate, for building tough, physical football teams. But he's also known for holding people accountable. And after Monday night, you can bet that accountability will be the theme of the week in Ashburn. Sources close to the team have already suggested that Quinn lit into his players in the locker room after the loss, delivering one of his most intense post-game talks since taking over. This wasn't about embarrassing anyone. It was about setting a tone. You either fix the mistakes, or you get left behind. And honestly, that's exactly what this team needs right now. No sugarcoating. No moral victories. Just accountability and execution. The Commanders are at a crossroads. They can either use this loss as a wake-up call, or let it snowball into something that wrecks their season. The difference will come down to how they respond. How they prepare this week, how they start the next game, how they handle adversity when it inevitably comes again. Because it will come again. That's the NFL. There's still time for Washington to turn things around. They're not out of contention. They're not broken beyond repair. But the margin for error is shrinking fast. At 3-3, with the toughest part of the schedule ahead, this next month will define who they are. Are they a team that folds when things get hard? Or are they a team that fights back? That refuses to let one loss turn into two? Dan Quinn's message was clear. Good teams win the games they're supposed to. That didn't happen against Chicago, but the next 4 weeks will give them plenty of chances to prove they've learned the lesson. For Commanders fans, the frustration is understandable. You've seen this story before. The promise, the hype, the moments of brilliance that get overshadowed by the same mistakes. But this time feels different, if only because Quinn refuses to let it be the same old story. His post-game comments weren't just frustration, they were leadership in its rawest form. He knows the potential of this team, and he's demanding they start living up to it. The next few weeks will tell us whether his players heard him loud and clear, or whether they'll keep finding new ways to beat themselves. Either way, the message has been sent. Dan Quinn isn't here for moral victories or empty excuses. He's here to win. And if the Commanders don't start matching that energy soon, some tough decisions are coming. This loss to the Bears may feel like just one game in the standings, but inside that locker room, it could be the moment that defines the entire season. Because in the NFL, every Sunday tells a story, and right now, it's up to Washington to decide how this one ends. If you're enjoying the coverage, make sure to smash that like button and drop a comment with your thoughts on the Commanders' latest moves. We want to hear from you. The NFL world is buzzing tonight after an absolutely jaw-dropping statement that has left fans, analysts, and even insiders scratching their heads. Terry McLaurin, one of the most electrifying wide receivers in the league and a cornerstone of the Washington Commanders offense, has seemingly dropped a bombshell about the future of the team. In an interview that was meant to be routine, McLaurin's words sent shockwaves across social media and locker rooms alike, as he didn't hold back when discussing what might happen if certain moves were made by the franchise. He said, and I quote, "If he comes back, a lot of people are going to ask to leave the Commanders." The cryptic comment has ignited an avalanche of speculation about exactly who he was referring to, what kind of locker room tensions might be simmering beneath the surface, and how this could reshape the franchise moving forward. Fans are already dissecting every syllable, and insiders are whispering that there's more to this story than meets the eye. For those not completely up to speed, McLaurin has been a model of consistency and professionalism in Washington, becoming the team's go-to playmaker and arguably the player who can single-handedly turn games around. He's the kind of athlete every franchise dreams of building around, someone who commands respect on the field and in the locker room. So when he makes statements like this, it immediately raises eyebrows. Analysts are now questioning whether there are internal conflicts brewing that the public hasn't seen before. Who exactly is he? Is McLAURIN talking about a potential quarterback returning from injury, a veteran player making a comeback, or even a coaching figure whose presence could change the dynamics of the team entirely? The lack of clarity is exactly what fuels the fire. You can almost feel the tension in the air, as if McLAURIN just opened a window into the private world of the Commanders' locker room, and the sunlight streaming in is revealing cracks we've never noticed before. Social media has been on fire since the moment this quote hit the news cycle. Fans are theorizing, pundits are debating, and the rumor mill is spinning faster than ever. Some think he could be referring to a quarterback like Carson Wentz, whose return from injury or even rumored trade scenarios has been a hot topic this offseason. Others speculate it might involve a star running back or even a controversial figure whose presence historically polarizes teams. McLaurin's phrasing, "a lot of people are going to ask to leave," suggests there could be deep divisions, perhaps conflicting leadership styles, or even locker room politics that have been simmering beneath the surface and now risk boiling over. The sheer intensity of this remark is exactly the kind of thing that keeps sports talk shows busy for weeks. Imagine the locker room dynamics if a single return could trigger multiple players wanting out. That's a scenario that could reshape the entire franchise trajectory in ways no one is fully prepared for. What's fascinating about McLaurin's comment is how it blends both concern and caution. On one hand, it hints at his awareness of the complexities behind team chemistry. On the other, it serves as a subtle warning to the management. Whatever decisions are made in the coming weeks could have ramifications far beyond simple roster changes. There's a delicate balance in every professional sports team between talent, personality, and cohesion. You can have the best athletes on paper, but if locker room dynamics falter, all the wins in the world don't matter. McLAURIN, in his understated but pointed way, seems to be reminding both fans and executives that the human element is just as critical as the X's and O's. This insight, whether intentional or spontaneous, reveals a level of awareness that not many players voice publicly. And that's what makes this so explosive, because it's rare for a star player to speak so candidly about potential fractures within their own team without naming names, but still leaving enough clues to make speculation inevitable. Meanwhile, the Commanders' front office has been noticeably quiet, a move that speaks volumes on its own. Silence, in this context, is almost deafening. Are they scrambling internally to address possible tensions? Are they weighing the risk of letting a returning player disrupt the current roster harmony? Or are they confident enough that McLaurin's comment is just media sensationalism blown out of proportion? Every insider seems to have a different take. Some suggest that the front office is already drawing up contingency plans, potentially preparing for trades or restructuring contracts to avoid locker room unrest. Others argue that McLaurin's remark might serve as a subtle signal to management. Don't make moves that jeopardize the chemistry I've fought to maintain in this locker room. This interplay between player influence and executive decision-making is exactly the kind of story that makes the NFL so compelling. Because while talent matters, leadership and morale can often make or break a season before the first whistle even blows. Analysts have also been dissecting McLaurin's career trajectory, noting that he's reached a point where his voice carries enormous weight. He's not just a playmaker. He's a leader whose opinions might shape how teammates think about their own futures. That adds a layer of intrigue. If McLAURIN feels strongly enough to publicly suggest that a returning figure could unsettle the locker room, are others already privately feeling the same way? Could this statement be a harbinger of a shifting dynamic within the Commanders, or is it merely a hypothetical warning meant to spark conversation? Either way, the ripple effect is undeniable. Sports media outlets are spinning multiple angles, social media feeds are exploding with speculation, and fans are left anxiously waiting to see how the team will respond. The uncertainty is almost palpable, creating a tension that can either motivate or destabilize, depending on what unfolds next. In the midst of all this, one thing is clear. Terry McLaurin's star power gives his words impact far beyond what most athletes could achieve. When a player of his caliber voices concern, whether subtle or direct, it forces the organization to take notice. Teams can often survive controversy, but when the controversy comes from a player who is central to the franchise's identity, it becomes a much trickier situation. The rumor itself, regardless of whether it materializes into real changes, has already reshaped the narrative around the Commanders. Conversations that might have been purely about draft picks, free agency, or performance stats are now overshadowed by questions of locker room chemistry, leadership, and potential internal conflict. The NFL is as much about these human stories as it is about athletic prowess, and McLaurin has, intentionally or not, just reminded everyone of that in a very dramatic fashion. As the rumor continues to circulate, speculation has reached a fever pitch. Fans are debating which players might be influenced by this potential return and how the team might react if multiple requests to leave do actually surface. The possible scenarios are endless: trades, locker room confrontations, shifts in leadership, and even a reevaluation of coaching strategies. And yet, amid all the conjecture, one fact remains indisputable. McLaurin's words have injected a level of uncertainty into the Commanders' organization that no analyst could ignore. Every training camp, practice session, and team meeting could now be viewed through the lens of this single statement, as everyone watches to see how the ripple effects unfold. In a league where momentum, confidence, and cohesion are priceless, this could be the start of a dramatic chapter in Washington's story, one where a returning figure has the potential to reshape everything, for better or worse. Whether this is just a moment of candid honesty, a calculated warning, or the opening salvo in a much larger saga, the impact is already being felt. Sports talk shows, fan forums, and even casual observers are now locked in debates about what McLaurin truly meant and how seriously the Commanders' management should take it. The speculation alone is enough to dominate headlines for weeks. But beneath the surface lies a more profound question. How does a team balance the talent, ambition, and personalities of its stars to maintain cohesion? McLaurin's revelation, however indirect, is forcing that very question into the spotlight. And if his prediction comes true, if indeed multiple players seek to leave upon a returning figure's arrival, it could mark one of the most tumultuous periods in the franchise's history, testing leadership, resilience, and loyalty in ways few could have anticipated. For now, the NFL world watches, listens, and waits, because in the blink of an eye, this rumor could redefine the Commanders' season, the careers of several players, and perhaps even the legacy of Terry McLaurin himself. The stage is set, the whispers are loud, and the drama has only just begun. Thanks for tuning into District Command Central. Make sure to subscribe and follow us for all the Commanders news you need. Until next time, keep the faith and hail to the Commanders.